July 17th meeting of the Historical Preservation Board to order. We got music. Yeah. Thank you. Denise, why don't you go ahead and do roll call?
Okay. Board Member Bracey.
Present.
Board Member Field. Not in. Board Member Fisher. Here. Board Member Grove.
Here.
Board Member Kastner is absent. Board Member Miller.
Here.
Board Member Price is absent. Board Member Lady.
Here.
And Board Member Spratlin.
Here.
Thank you. The agenda has been posted. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay. Approval of the minutes. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the June 19th meeting. Does somebody want to put forward a motion?
I move to approve, based on the recording secretary's certification, the June 19th, 2017 action minutes for the June 19th, 2017 regular meeting of the Littleton Historical Preservation Board.
Second. All those in favor? Do we have to do this?
You got to open it up.
The system's on, right?
Yep. Don't forget at the top by your gavel is where you flip it over.
Thing. All right. There we go. Okay. All approved.
All right. It's unanimous and the motion carries.
Public comment. Did we have anybody sign up for public comment? Oh, okay. Okay. Brandon will have a comment on that.
I mean, would you like to explain that this is general comment and not for items that are on the agenda, perhaps?
Yeah, this is just for general. If you're speaking tonight as an applicant, then you'll have your time.
Non-agenda related items is what this time of the meeting is for.
Okay. So we have, as you know, when we have public comment, you're limited to 3 minutes. Come up to the podium, give your name and address. If you get a yellow card, that's 2.5 minutes, and the red card is 3 minutes. So we have Pam Claiborne.
Good evening, Council. My name is Pam Chadbourne. I live in District 1, a block and a half from here. And first off, I wanted to talk about minutes. In the minutes that I think you just approved, it said that I spoke in public comment about Littleton mixed use. And when this topic came up in front of Council a few months ago, some citizens said that when they come down to speak and they have an opinion, they would like to see that position stated in the minutes. So I didn't talk about Littleton mixed use. I said that I thought Littleton mixed use violated the downtown design standards and guidelines. And I would like that position reflected in the minutes. So council already has incorporated that into their process. There seems to be, yes, whatever council does, we do. We have to. So I hope that our minutes will, from now on, reflect the opinion or the position of the public speaker. I think I also talked about economic development and whether economic development should be the motivator for Historic Preservation Board. And I said, it's clear to me it shouldn't. Historic preservation and economic development through historic preservation is what this board's charter is all about. And I believe that. I believe that we can have a vibrant, economically vital, and sustainable city through historic preservation in portions of the city. I'm very excited about the Littleton Boulevard survey because it extends our possible historic value from Broadway to Santa Fe. And almost nowhere else in Denver metro area has anything like that. So we should preserve that, and I hope, Historic Preservation Board, that you will foster this process and make it successful. So I wanted to mention economic development needs to be at the table. We need to understand what historic districts bring to a city's economic health. And I'd like to see the city respond, the staff bring this information to you. This is not something for historic preservation to carry alone. This is a city initiative. It has economic ramifications, which I believe will make the city successful. And we should understand what those are. So when you folks vote and when we, the public, look at what you vote for, we understand that there is economic value, and so do all of the property owners and tenants, the business owners in these areas. And I'm smiling because it's exciting to me. This is a great prospect. It can bring great things to Littleton. So I'm very happy about it. Finally, I just wanted to thank you for your service, and I'm sorry I ran out of time. I always do. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you, Pam. Do we have somebody else that wanted to speak on the general business? Okay. So we're good with that? All right, now, so we have public comment. Now we move to general business. Do we have anything in particular? Okay, nothing on that. Then we move to the public hearing. Okay, just a quick review of the public hearing. Many of you have been through the process. In just a minute, we'll open the public hearing. Staff will speak. Then it'll be time for the applicant to speak or their representative. Then there'll be public comments or questions. And again, the 3-minute rule, introduce yourselves, still applies. Then the applicant can speak and rebut anything that's been said. Then we close the public hearing. We'll have a discussion and among the board members. And then we'll have a motion either to approve, deny, or continue. And there may be some conditions attached to that. And any of you that have applied are an applicant and want to leave after that session, you're more than welcome, or you can stay. So let's go ahead, and we are going to open the public hearing for HPV Resolution 10, 2017, the continuation of this one has been postponed.
Withdrawn.
Pardon?
Withdrawn.
Withdrawn. The Duncan House has been withdrawn, so we are not going to do that one. So, okay, we'll move to the HPB Resolution 12, 2017, the COA for a garage addition at 5647 South Lawson Street. So, Dennis, thank you.
Thank you. So this is a aerial photo of the location. That's Littleton Boulevard on the south, going east and west. On the north is Powers, and this is the Louthan Historic District. This is on the west side of the street, single-family house. And there were specific details in design guidelines that were talking about this house. So we've got some background on it as we look at this. Because it's in the district, the design guidelines that we're using are the new ones. This is the first time we've actually gotten to apply the design guidelines. I think the applicant did a great job of kind of following the process of these and has been looking at that as they went through the entire process of building the concept and looking at the details and how they wanted to go with this project. These are new owners of the neighborhood. They just bought the house. They haven't moved in yet. They're doing work on it before they move in and have been very thorough in terms of their analysis and their research working with us. This is the house built by Charles Louthan in 1922. As you can tell, it's a pebble dash stucco, as the district is famous for. The garage that we're talking about is in the back on the left there. So this, again, on the west side of the street, the driveway comes toward the front. This is a close-up of the driveway. If you look at that garage door, it's not a full two-car garage door. It's a one-car, and the applicants are wanting to turn this garage into a two-car garage, as well as add some additional space for storage of bicycles and lawn equipment, that type of thing. This is the back of the garage on the alley. As you can tell, there's no access from the alley, so all the access comes from the front. They have that one garage door. And this is the side that they're looking at adding the little addition to. And that is it, facing south, excuse me. So that is the wall that they'd be looking at adding an addition off of. This is another house that's one block over that is an individual landmark. It's a landmark, Littleton landmark. And they looked at this garage and said, you know, that might work for us because it has this intersecting garage roof that form that actually works very well, I think, for them here. This one's up on the alley, but you can kind of see what they're looking at a much smaller scale than this. What they're talking about is much smaller facility than this, but they liked the look of it. They thought it worked, and they've been using that as their basis. This is the site plan for the proposal. There were a couple things about this. Because Louthan is an older neighborhood, was actually developed before the zoning was in place, the lots are smaller than the minimum lot size in the zone district. And so when you look at trying to achieve the open space requirement for new development on those lots, it's a little tough. And they also, the other thing is the garage, as you can see on the left, is right on the alley, and that's typical of the neighborhood. That's, if you drive up and down those alleys, you're going to see the garages actually either, even if they open onto the alley, they're right on the alley, right on the property line. What you're seeing here is the intersecting roof form for the addition they would look at going off of that existing garage on the left side there. So, and I can point that out perhaps. So it's this section is the addition. This is the existing garage. This is a solid driveway. As you might remember, the neighborhood initially had the ribbon driveways. This was actually redone by a previous owner, and so it's a solid driveway. And when you look at trying to achieve the open space that's required for this lot, which is 50%, they came very close, but they couldn't get it primarily because of the driveway. And again, because the garage is at the back of the lot, it's a lot of concrete, a lot of driveway. So they ended up having to go to the Board of Adjustment. I'll talk a little bit about that later, to get 2 variances before they came to the board. And the variances were one for this rear yard setback, which would require 10 feet. And so the concern was if they did 10 feet, that they might actually have to come up beyond the garage, and it wouldn't fit with the character of the neighborhood or what they saw with other garages in the neighborhood. And they also looked at putting it in other places where they're concerned when they looked up and down the backyards, it's all open in here. So all the garages are back, all the houses are forward, and there's a great view through here, and so they wanted to maintain that as well. They've been very sensitive to the neighborhood and done a great job, I think, with that. The other, so one variance they needed was the setback, the other one was the open space requirement from the 50%. So they did go to the board, and they were granted both of those. There's a little bit more detail in terms of the size. You can tell it's not a huge addition that they're building. So here's the existing garage. They're going to take out these two side parts of the existing wall for the garage, and those were added later. As you can tell from looking at older garages, they had different garage doors than this has. These were added later, so this will come out. It's not original. And then they will take out this wall, and that one is pebble dash stucco, but there aren't. I think our agreement was there aren't any other really good options for them, so that seems to be the best option. They're going to have a little porch here off the side, so there's a little overhang on the roof, and then a door coming in, two windows on the end here. And they end up with not a huge facility, 11 by 13, but it does provide enough space for them to do the storage that they're looking for. Another little drawing that shows the porch that they would be adding and the roof line coming across. And then again, this would be from the alley side looking at it. This is the new wall that would come out into the backyard, the two windows they'd be adding. And we actually, in the packets, you do see the type of window they're talking about. It's a wood window. It's very similar to what is in the house currently in the original house. There was an addition, and there have been some windows changed over the years, but they're going back to the double hung type of window that was in the house originally. And again, this is the site plan and the issues that they had. This is the variance that was approved. They'd go through and get those two variances so that they can put it closer. They can't put it right on the alley, but they can put it 3 feet back, and then they'll have an overhang that goes out 18 inches, and so it'll come closer, but they are allowed to have that overhang that is typical of the neighborhood, deep overhang, and they will then have a little bit of space. We thought 10 feet it ends up being just a dead zone in there between the addition and the alley if they were to put that in, because they have a fence, so it'd be fence, dead zone, and addition, and we thought, well, that's pointless, and I think the board agreed with us on that. So, and then the other one, they were so close on the open space, and we really saw that as pre-existing conditions. They really seemed to have had a hardship with this, as is necessary to get a variance granted. They had a hardship of pre-existing conditions that they had not created themselves. So again, this is the west facade of the garage. This is the, well, excuse me, sorry. 1.5 story, or excuse me, 1.5 car garage door, and then another door that was added, and then a window that was added. That will all come out, and we'll get a new 2-car garage door on that side. The pebble dash stucco will stay up above. And again, this is the south wall. This is the siding that is on an addition to the house, and their feeling in going around the neighborhood was they saw an awful lot of houses that had just this huge variety of materials, and they really wanted to simplify as much as possible. So they prefer not to do just a plain stucco on the house, which ended up being a little different color. They prefer to go with the siding that's similar to this. And they'll be going with a wood siding. This is not wood, but it's not solid wood, but they're going to be going with a wood siding, on a cedar siding for the house, or for the addition, excuse me. And these are the windows that were added later, as you can tell, the aluminum siders, and they're going again be going with the 1/1 double hung window. There's the window. You don't really see it in this; it's a little light, but there is actually a bar going across here, so you can actually see it's a double hung vertical. And this is the type of garage door they're talking about. This is the type of garage door that was original to the neighborhood. This is what's on the garage that they found. That they thought was a good model for them, with the doors that opened out, folded, and I don't think anybody's too excited about having those at this point, so they're going to have an overhead door that does have the same kind of divisions, has the same kind of sense to it, and again, that's not showing up terribly well here, but it does have that kind of form. That's what they're looking at, is trying to, again, get this kind of vertical division going in, as well as the windows up above, again replacing this wall. This is a resolution to approve a certificate of historic appropriateness for the garage addition. The analysis did, as you know, There are 5 criteria, and if the application meets those 5 criteria, then COA is warranted. The first one is features. Proposed work would not detrimentally alter, destroy, or adversely affect any architectural or landscape feature which contributes to its original historic designation. Second one is the design guidelines is otherwise in conformance with any applicable adopted guidelines. Third one is structures on the property. The work is visually compatible with designated historic structures located on the property in terms of design, finish, material, scale, mass, and height. And the fourth one is structures on adjacent properties, visually compatible. And again, they found another structure that they thought would be a good model for them. The materials work, and certainly the roof form works. And then partial demolition. If there is a partial demolition, which there is in this case, because they'll be demolishing that one wall, is required for the renovation, restoration, or rehabilitation of the structure, and impacts on the historic importance and architectural integrity of the structure have been mitigated to the greatest extent possible. And they certainly have attempted that. They're providing an addition which meets the criteria, meets the design guidelines. It would be nice, I think, if they could have saved a portion of that wall, but the stucco doesn't work terribly well that way. So they will be saving the pebble dash stucco for repairs, other parts of the house or the garage as they need over time, which I think is a great idea. In the staff report, we went through a great deal of detail in terms of the design guidelines, selecting those design guidelines which we thought were most applicable, and reviewing those accordingly. And again, I think the only concern we have is the demolition of the wall, but again, we think it's justified. And I think that's really it. I think that's the only thing. I think other than that, it's really a good project. And that one's unavoidable. So anyways, our staff recommendation is that we find that the application is in compliance with Section 4614 and the proposed certificate of historic appropriateness for the Servey Stevens Burt residence at 5647 South Loughton Street meets the 5 criteria for approval. And with that, questions from the board. And the applicant does have a PowerPoint as well that he'd like to go through and have a little bit more explanation. Okay. Questions?
I have a question. Maybe it's because of how this works, but the pebble dash wall, isn't that the edge of the wall, and then there's the addition?
Yeah, there'll be wall left on a little bit on either side of it, but I think the fear, and we can talk to Doug about that, but I think the concern is that when you start breaking that off, you may lose it. I don't know, but we can talk more and see if that's possible to keep that.
I mean, it would be inside, right?
No, it would not. It would be, there's a little setback. There's a 3-foot setback in back. From the back of the garage, you'll have 3 feet of wall there. And then there will be the 3 feet in front, which is the porch, which, so then you go 3 feet back to the back of the porch, which is the addition. And then at that point, you will have the new wall coming out. So you could possibly have 3 feet on either side. That would be the pebble dash.
I guess I'm not understanding it. I thought there was, leave it as is, but there's an addition that comes out. Am I wrong?
Yes, because they'll actually open it up so it'll be connected to the existing garage. So.
Right, but why do you have to demo that wall?
I'm sorry?
Why can't you just add that piece?
I guess
Because it's still, the garage will still be a 2-car garage, right?
it would be a 2-car garage. The thought is that it gives them a lot more flexibility if it opens to the garage. So we can ask Doug more about that
Okay,
too.
they just, I mean, if they kept it, nobody would see it.
Right,
Just,
that's
it
true.
would be
You wouldn't
there.
see it
It'd
anyway,
just be
yeah.
really nice, yeah.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
Okay, any questions? Amy? No? Okay, all right. Why don't we go ahead and hear from the applicant or their representative? And if you
This is
would give
Doug
your...
Albrecht.
Pardon?
This is Doug Albrecht, the applicant.
Oh, okay.
PowerPoint up here. Okay, there we go. Sure.
Good evening. My name is Doug Albrecht, moving into 5647 South Louthon Street, currently residing 8592 South Miller Court, Littleton also. Pleased to come and present this tonight. To answer your question, first of all, we are going to take that out so that a car can angle into that new addition part, so that wall would come out. Because even if you just take that out and open it up, it's still extremely tight for a two-car, and I'll show you a picture to demonstrate.
Thank you.
So Dennis already did a great job covering everything, so a lot of this will be a repeat, but there were a few items I just wanted to kind of highlight. So again, the front view of the house. Again, the overview of the lot. I think this next item here, this is probably a better shot to show just the garage, and that wall between the two would come out to allow a car to angle into that. So we would be taking that out, and as Dennis mentioned, we do plan to save that material because there are several repairs desperately needed on the house. So we do want to save that aggregate so that we can do those repairs. Here's a better picture of a Mini Cooper in front of the garage. So when we say it's a two-car garage, even if you tried to fit two of those in there with a bigger door, it's extremely small. So that's why we want to have that ability to be able to angle another car in, or obviously storage bikes, things like that. So that's what we're working for with that addition. As Dennis mentioned, this is the garage. Not only is it a National Historic District registered site, but it was also a Charles Louthon built house. So we were trying to find a garage that fit within the Louthon community, and by finding another one that was built by Charles Louthon, we felt that very appropriate, and that's why we modeled our addition after this approach. So it's not just we saw one that worked, it happened to be a Louthon built one as well. This is actually one other point. We were talking about being able to see the garage, things like that. From the street view, this is actually the only place you'll be able to see that garage addition. Obviously there's a truck in the way, sorry about that, but you can just see between the house and the existing garage, that's the only point that this new garage addition would be visible from. So it's not like it'll be an eyesore from everywhere or anything like that. We are trying to make it look as close as possible to everything else that's available there. A couple other items Dennis already talked about, but we did think the tandem garage, because we thought, okay, it'll work. We can not modify much of the structure other than that front, which has already been modified once. But we went into one of the neighbors' yards and looked up and down the street. And as Dennis mentioned, you see a garage on one side, a nice big open area, and then the house on the other. And we didn't think it was appropriate within the historic district to put a big garage and tuck that in there, because it blocks everyone's view up and down the street. So we didn't think that was appropriate. We also looked at just changing the entire structure of the garage, but because of the Louthon Historic District, that wouldn't work. It would have meant taking 3 walls out and not just the one that we're doing. Didn't think that was appropriate again, so we went this direction. We chose a similar 2 garage. The entire garage and the roof line will stay within the existing fence line. As Dennis mentioned, we've got the variance 3 feet to the structure, and then with the overhang of the eave, we're still within that fence line. We've also talked the plans with as many of the neighbors as I could, just to make sure there weren't anyone that was vehemently against it. Actually had no arguments within the neighborhood. We also talked to our kind of point of contact that we all look to in the neighborhood, Matt Wilson, who's the focal point of getting the Historic District guidelines published, and he did not have any objections at the time. So we tried to make that effort as well to get in with the neighbors and make sure everyone was okay with us before we went forward with this. A little bit better shot of one of the doors also. The garage door, as Dennis mentioned, we are trying to stay with a carriage door, so it has the look of a double opening door, but the function of a roll-up. We're looking at that 5-panel door on the right, again with the white. These don't come out well, sorry about that, but trying to stay with what was historically accurate on the inside of the house, so we're trying to model along those lines. And then again, it's a double hung wood window. And Dennis already went through these. I wasn't expecting those there, so that covered everything, but just wanted to show a little bit more about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before you leave, do you see anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, do we have any public comment on the COA? Just Doug. Okay. You want to come up, give your name, your address?
My name is Matthew Wilson. I'm a homeowner at 5627 South Loudon. And first of all, are you ready? I'd like to say thank you to Doug and Kate. They're the kind of homeowners that in a historic district anybody would love to get, because the minute they bought the house, like we do with all new homeowners, we provided them a copy of the draft design guidelines and the history of the survey that was completed on the historic nature of their home. And I think Doug probably got to me within, the first 3 days of being there, and talked to me about how much they loved the neighborhood and that they were excited to get that information, and his commitment along with his wife to really look into the history of it. And of course, like any new homeowner, he's excited. He wants to make changes. And I directed him to the city as well as Tom and the other homeowners. And Doug has run with that ball. He's gone and done additional research on both interior and exterior changes. Like he said, he's met with many neighbors to look at their homes, try to get more information. He's always come to us on what he thought his plan was going to look like. And I really appreciate that he was willing to back off his initial idea of doing the garage towards the front, because that would have made a really big impact to the neighborhood. That driveway by the previous owner had already been expanded to kind of have these wings on it. The drawings don't show it. They make it look like it's a straight historic strip driveway. It's not. It has wider wings. It was poured wider than the other driveways. And even when Doug worked with the city to have the pan replaced on the driveway, he agreed that he wanted the look to stay the same as well as the other homes, and he didn't argue the point and made sure that the driveway was the exact same width as the other homes, even though it doesn't quite match his extra wide driveway. So I appreciate him being willing to compromise on things to help protect the neighborhood. My follow-up questions would be, again, I've been checking with Dennis on a regular basis and the city staff. This process would be a lot easier if we would get the final design guidelines, and I've offered even to help pass them out to all the neighborhood homeowners. It's been now another 3 months since they were approved. We're waiting, I guess, on changes or printing or editors or comments. As soon as they're out, we would love to get them to all the homeowners. They've been waiting. We're in the 13th year and quickly headed towards the 14th. I'd love to be able to actually say we have that document passed out. So maybe we can find out the status of it. The status of the historic tax refunds is taking longer every year too. I don't understand why the majority of the homeowners don't turn over, why we have to turn in paperwork that matches every year and then wait longer each year. But I know the city's busy working on a lot of projects, so I appreciate your time and staff time and hope they could give us some information on all those things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you, Matt. Do you have any other comments? Did you want to come back and say anything?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate Matt's concern about design guidelines. We have gotten additional editorial edits on that, and I'm working those into the draft, and I should have that done fairly soon and get it back out to everybody. Have it
Pam, before we, Chair Grove, before we have Dennis respond, is there anyone else sign up for public comment as we conclude that part of the meeting?
We didn't have any, okay.
Does the applicant have any rebuttal, I guess, is the next step?
No.
No supportive? Nope. Okay. Let's make sure all the boxes are checked before we continue on.
Yeah, no, I guess he kind of said no. So there's no rebuttal, but Dennis can respond to the question, can't he?
Time to close the public hearing at this point and then have ask the question of staff.
Okay, so now the public hearing is closed. Dennis, can you respond to the question we had about when the guidelines will be done?
So we should have those out within the next month, I think, at least. So hopefully sooner, both electronically and posted on the city's website, as well as hard copies to the neighbors. We'll send those out to all the neighbors, so we'll mail them to them.
And will you communicate that to the Loudon?
Sure will.
And let us know.
Yeah, Matt has been very good, and all the neighbors are very good in terms of giving the access to all the email addresses, and so we've got a good access that way.
Okay, that's good to hear. It just, just because we're on the topic, what about the tax credits?
Tax credits, it'd be nice if we could just do that every year.
Chair Grove.
They do change.
Can't talk about that?
Yeah, can we please keep it related to the COA? If this is a good topic to talk about, but it's probably more
We'll talk about
appropriate
during
for a
staff
staff
report.
report. Yep.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and close the public hearing? And just to kind of see where the board is with this, we need to go through the criteria, but that may be a quick process. So thoughts and discussions about this in terms of kind of which way we're leaning in terms of a motion? Are you leaning towards accepting it? I mean,
I think so. Yeah.
there's,
I appreciate that they've went around and got neighbor comments. It seems like their neighbors are on board, and there was nobody here to object to it. So, and I don't.
and keeping the pebble dash on top, I think that's very good to keep in.
I think it's consistent with the scale. I appreciate the fact that they've looked at other precedents in the neighborhood. So I'm leaning towards voting to approve.
Without any,
Yeah, I agree. I like the fact that they're keeping not all of the original material, but enough to make it still the existing structure, not starting from scratch.
any other thoughts? I tend to agree. I kind of looked at the differences, the siding materials, the type of garage, the door, the windows, and it all seems to be within the character. So just to technically go through it, do we agree that it meets all 5 criteria that is outlined in the design guidelines?
Yes.
Well, then I think we're ready to go to a motion to approve. Before we do that, is there any thoughts of any conditions? No? All right. Who wants to go ahead and put a motion forward then?
I move to approve HPB Resolution 12-2017, approving the Certificate of Historic Appropriateness for the Servey Stevens Burt residence at 5647 South Louthan Street.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Let's go ahead and vote. Okay, it's approved unanimously. So congratulations. Thank you for all your hard work on that. We appreciate it. And thank you, Matt, for coming and giving us some of the neighborhood input. We really appreciate it. Okay. Now we move to the resolution to allocate the 2017 Main Street Historic District grants. Are you going to give us an update, Dennis?
I need to pull it up here.
And just as a quick note, the Duncan Street one was withdrawn, so now we're down to just 2. The Creamy and the Masonic Building.
So this is, again, the 2017 Main Street Historic District grant. The applications came in. We actually had 3 grant applications initially, as you recall, for the $50,000 that was allocated by City Council in the 2017 budget. Those 3 applications totaled $76,440, which was 61% of the $125,000 total cost of projects. So we think it's leveraging pretty well. After the June 19th, 2017 board meeting, the grant applicant for the Duncan House withdrew both the grant application and the COA for that project with the thought that he would have more time next year and we'll come back again probably with both the COA and the grant application. So without the Duncan House in there, the revised grant request total is $68,720, which is 59% of the $115,000 total cost of the remaining 2 projects. As you recall, at the first meeting, you actually had presentations by the individual applicants that came up and made a presentation as well as asked questions by the board and answered those, with the thought that then at this meeting, you would have had an opportunity to look at the property, look at the applications again, and actually make those allocations tonight. The standard criteria, we've got two sets of review criteria. We've got standard criteria, which are the ones that are actually in the code. And those are established in the city code. And then we have the discretionary criteria, which the board has set over the years. And so those are things that you can change as your priorities change, and those have changed over the years. And we've got a couple more we might think about for next year, change of way to think about. The property, first, for the standard criteria, you've got to be in the historic district, or you can be an individual landmark within an area that's defined in the code as downtown. And generally, it's kind of a smaller section of the football. It goes up to Crestline, goes over to Santa Fe and to the Railroad Depression, and then down to Church Street, so where ACC starts. So that's the downtown. If you're an individual landmark in that area and you're used for commercial purposes, you also can apply. So the Duncan House applied with that grant. We've had other individual landmarks over the years that have applied as outside the Main Street District, but still within that downtown area. They also have 6 different types of projects. They have to be one of these. They don't have to be more than one. Architectural design assistance, facade work, maintenance, new signage, graffiti removal, or other improvements for new tenants. So it's fairly broad in terms of what those can be. Again, those are established in the code. Then we go to the discretionary criteria, and the board has said, and we've said as well, it really needs to be a complete application. It's not fair to the other applicants or to the board if you don't have a complete application. You don't move forward until you have that. And all 7 elements of the application must be completed. First time, if this is the first time you actually applied for grant funds, there's a little bit of priority given to you, to your application. Or if you're new to the district, you've just come into the district, not only is there some priority given to you, but there are also some additional projects that you could actually ask for additional assistance for. You can actually ask for some interior projects, and you can ask for ADA related projects. Visual impact is something the board has kind of decided over time. Given the intent of the Main Street grant, it was really to look at the facades, really to look at how does downtown look. So what's the visual impact? And it's kind of, this one's talking about kind of a relative scale. Which of these are going to have a greater visual impact of the applications that you receive and review? And so you give the ones that have a higher visual impact a little higher rating again. There we go. The 2 grants, we did a project summary for each of those. It's in your packet. Weston Masonic Lodge, this is the 4th year they've come in for a phased project. They started with the front of the building. They rebuilt the front porch. They rebuilt the sidewalk. And they did work on the mortar and with the brickwork. They then moved to the the south wall and then the east wall, and this year they're looking at the north wall. The project cost for that is $23,400. They're asking for $18,720. Percentage of that is 80, and 80% again is a percentage that was set by the board. It's not in your criteria, but it's precedent that you've set, and it is again something that I don't think the board has varied from in any case. This project is not, the building's not new to the district, and they actually they were able to get 3 bids for this project. They've been doing this enough that they have built some relationships with people that do this kind of work. The Littleton Creamery at 2675 West Alamo, currently used as Vandal Antiques and the Home and Garden store. They want to demolish the back addition and replace that with new construction and add air conditioning. This is the 2nd grant application in recent years. The earlier approved application focusing on replacing and improving the foundation of the front porch, which was had been put in place years before, which without a lot of engineering attached to it. So it needed to be replaced, and so that grant went to replacing that. Total project cost of this is $92,135. The grant request is for $50,000, which would be 54% of that. They are not new to the district, and they were able, at the time that they did the application, get 2 bids for construction and 1 for air conditioning. The applicant is here tonight. He wants to talk a little bit more about the addition and the need to replace that, and also see if she's had I know she's been trying still to get some additional bids for that, for the project. This will have design assistance as well, so there will be an architect, and they'll come back through a COA, board-level COA for this project, whereas Masonic Lodge does not need either. There's not a permit required for that, and so they don't have to get even a staff-level review for that for COA. Your second attachment in the packet is the evaluation criteria, and again, at the top is the standard criteria, at the bottom are the discretionary criteria with staff's take on which met and which did not meet them. Now, on the standard criteria, those are fairly easy. They're pretty clear as to what they are. They're quantitative generally, whereas the discretionary are a little more qualitative. Again, the two projects, Western Masonic Lodge, Littleton Creamery. Western Masonic Lodge built in 1921. And again, they're looking at the brickwork and the mortar and taking out the mortar and replacing that. And it's what they've done on the other three sides of the building over the years. Built in 1884, and it was kind of off by itself when it was built. It's changed a lot over the years. But you kind of see the back of the building, and the applicant's going to talk a little bit about just the need to replace that. And there it is. And their current, I guess it's a swamp cooler up on the second floor there, or in the attic. Okay, Western Masonic Lodge, grinding and replace the mortar on the north side of the lodge. Project cost $23,400. Grant request 80%. And the second one is Littleton Creamery. So those are the two project summaries. And again, the board has the review criteria, and I'm open to any questions.
I have a question. If this project for the creamery is big, if for some reason they didn't get, if we awarded more towards the other, to the Masonic Lodge, would they still go ahead with the project, do you think?
I don't know. I think the applicant is here, and we can ask her that question. So.
Can we ask the applicant questions? I thought we had our presentation last.
You may ask the applicant questions. This is part of a public hearing, so.
Okay.
But we'll have time for public comment, and she can speak during public comment. Other questions?
So remind me if, it seems like we ask this every year, and I can never remember. If we don't use all the grant funds this round, there are
a couple options. One is we could actually have another round. The board has done that in the past. Or the board has changed the project and said, are there some smaller projects out there? Or some painting projects or something else? It's a simpler process for people to do. Is there some other need that you see? But typically the board has used all the money, but there have been years when they haven't. So.
And if we don't use it, we lose it.
Right.
Any other questions for Dennis? Okay, so now our applicant can come speak. You give your name and your address.
Yes, thank you. Jenny Tempest, 4 Pars Circle, Littleton, Colorado. I just wanted to note, not only is it an impact of the economic viability of the structure, but it's also foundation. It's structurally what I call unsound. It does not have a foundation that it's actually sitting on. So I had pictures where you can kind of see it's falling away at the top, starting to. So to me, it's very important to get that done. To answer your question, would I still go ahead and do the project? Yes, I might change a few things or a couple of things, perhaps wait a little bit on the HVAC system, but to me, it's very important to get that structure done. The only way to access it is through the building itself. Used to have an exterior door, but that was, siding was put over, it was covered up. So when I redo this, I'll also add, an exit, because I like to have 2 exits, front and back out of a house or building. I think it's important, so.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I do appreciate what you do. I like to see the historic buildings maintained.
Thank you. Okay, so we can go ahead and close the public hearing on this, right?
First, are there any other applicants who'd like to speak?
Pardon?
Step one, any other applicant that'd like to speak would be step one. And then two, we have people signed up to speak for
Oh,
public
okay,
comment.
okay, great. Before we close the public hearing.
And the other applicants, we've told the applicants they did not need to be at the second meeting.
They
That's
don't
been
have
what
to
we've
be.
done
Okay.
historically. So they aren't here, and they actually called this morning and said they couldn't be here tonight, so.
Okay, but we do have other public comment?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Mark? Okay.
What?
Okay,
You need to
so-
speak at the microphone, sir.
Yeah,
That's how we do our public record, so everything that is said needs to be done into a microphone. Thank you.
Please give us your name and address.
My name is Larry Woolbrandt. I live at 6811 South Cherokee. I'm the secretary of the Weston Masonic Temple Association. We would certainly encourage you to use alternative number 2 because it would allow us to complete the entire project of and enhance the structure, the stability of the structure of our building. The east side needs to be done also, and that was not in the original plan for this year, but if we were if you were to approve alternative number 2, that would allow us to go ahead and finish all 4 sides of the building, and that would, like I say, enhance the structural stability of the entire building.
I thought this was the grant for the fourth side of the building, right?
No, this is for the third side, the north side only.
Third, okay.
Yes. The east side still needs some work done on it, but, our budget and all this does not allow that right at this time with the alternative number 1. But alternative number 2, if we were to get 100%, we could go ahead and do the east side at the same time.
Okay, so how does that work when that wasn't really part of grant?
Yeah, we can only grant what has been asked for in writing. We can't amend it.
So
I'm not suggesting that we amend it. I was just saying that we would go ahead and do some additional work. That the money,
It's something we may need to take back, but I believe the money can only be spent on exactly what we approve it.
we would only spend it on the north side then.
Okay,
Sorry, just trying to follow the rules.
yeah.
That's fine.
So then there would be, if we did award the 100%, it would be beyond the cost and would be for, the thinking was it's because they only got $10,000 last year,
Yes.
which was way under the budget.
Right.
So it's more like filling in the blanks from last year.
And if possible, we would appreciate that, yes.
And I can't remember off the top of my head what the total budget was for the one side. Was it the 23.4?
23.4, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
all right, thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much. We also have, we have another person, but I don't know if they wanted to speak. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right, we can go ahead and close the public hearing on this and go ahead and have a board discussion. So thoughts? You see the difference between alternative 1 and 2 and what the rationale is? Thoughts? 1 or 2?
I understand the rationale for option 2, but I'm inclined to lean toward option 1 because those are the requests that were put in as part of the grant process. That's what we've reviewed. That's what's been, formally requested by the guidelines. So I'm inclined to stick with that approach.
Also, I like working together where we give some and then the applicant gives some. So
That's
we're
important.
working together on it.
Yeah, that both sides have some skin in it.
And we don't have a precedent for giving 100%, so then that would change things going forward.
Yep.
So that would probably be best to keep that. And then they could always come back another year for that
Year,
additional piece. Are we ready to move to motion? I think we're pretty much okay. Okay, so somebody want to go ahead and propose a motion? It's on page 7 of 8, that section of the packet. Just have to fill in the numbers from alternative one.
Actually, give me, what's the number for the Western? So I'll write it in here. 18.
720
720.
and 31280 for Creamery.
Go ahead if you want. I'll give you the numbers.
I move to approve HPB Resolution 11-2017, approving the allocation of the 2017 Main Street grants with the following provisions. Weston Masonic Lodge, $18,720, subject to approval of a staff level certificate of historic appropriateness. Number 2, Littleton Creamery, $31,280, subject to approval of a board level certificate of historic appropriateness.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Oh, second?
I second.
Let's go ahead and vote.
Chair Grove, there's also suggested findings of fact below there. So on your approved motion,
Okay, should I keep reading?
yes,
Okay.
if that is the board's wish.
Great. Okay, so the foregoing approval is based on the findings that the application for a project at the Weston Masonic Lodge meets the following standard and discretionary criteria. Number 1, the Weston Lodge is in the Main Street Historic District. Number 2, the grant is for 2 of the qualifying types of projects, facade work and maintenance. Number 3, all elements of the application were completed. Number 4, the proposed project has a
Negligible visual.
a negligible visual impact on the character of the district. The application for a project at the Littleton Creamery meets the following standard and discretionary criteria. Number 1, the Littleton Creamery is in the Main Street Historic District. Number 2, the grant is for 4 of the qualifying types of projects, design assistance, facade work, maintenance, and other improvements. Number 3, all elements of the application were completed with the exception of the number of contractor bids. And number 4, the proposed project has a negligible, is that the right word?
Or positive?
Sure.
Yeah, positive visual impact on the character of the district.
Okay. Now we need a second.
Second.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and vote. Motion carried unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you for applying. Thank you very much for all the work you do to keep our historic district looking as nice as it is. Thank you. And if you want to leave, you're more than welcome as we go on to our staff report. Okay. Jocelyn, did you have, or Dennis? The staff report?
Yes, we have a couple things here this evening. First, we wanted to introduce our new city attorney, Steve Kemp, who's sitting in the audience. So just want to introduce you to him. That's the first. The second one is that after meeting with Pam earlier this week, staff will be putting in a request for HPB to City Council for the 2018 budget to increase your grant funding up to $75,000. So we will let you know the outcome of that, but that we want to
Thank you very much,
follow up with
Jocelyn.
that.
Thank you.
And then the third thing I guess I had was that we are working on a joint study session with you and City Council. I thought it was going to be in October, but their schedule's getting kind of moved all around, so I will email you and let you know when that is. But it is this coming up here this fall. So.
Thank you.
The only other thing I think we have is that there is another meet and greet next Tuesday. Kim is scheduled to be there. Jocelyn and I will be there. If anybody else wants to come, it's great fun. Meet lots of people, and it's a great way to get the word out about historic preservation in the city. So.
Where's that located?
Next one is Options High School. That's right.
Okay. Options High School.
And they
And it's
started
what, 4 to 6?
4 to 6. Oh.
Okay.
Free pizza and ice cream.
Okay. I wanted to let everybody know that we had a very successful set of 4 tours at the beginning of this month. We had 35 people for our first tour, 6 for a 7, 6 for the next one, 8, and then 25 for the 7 o'clock tour. So 75 people, very exciting. What we are going to do is get another lesson from staff and see if we can use the microphone. Not only is it hard to talk to all the people, but there's traffic noise too. But they seem very enthusiastic, and the half-hour tours seem very nice. The Western Welcome tours will be, remember, a whole hour. And I think we have everybody signed up for that. And Hoodlum meeting. Amy, do you want to tell us about going to the Hoodlum meeting, what transpired there?
Yeah, so I attended the Hoodlum meeting week before last, I believe. And there was conversation mainly about events going on downtown this summer. First of all, they looked back at the success of the street party. I guess it was very successful. It was a lot of fun. And looking ahead to this weekend's event, which is the Turkey Leg Hoedown. So from our board's standpoint, I gave them an update on the grant process that we just concluded tonight, and let them know, when we meet and what we talk about.
What about the Littleton Listens discussion that they had? About, remember that you had mentioned that they were having a discussion about expansion versus keeping downtown Littleton the same?
Yes, yeah, thank you for jogging my memory. I left my notes at home. Yeah, so there was a conversation around the most recent Littleton Listens event, and the sort of hope of the Hoodlum membership that the city would balance, the city residents as well as city government would balance the need for economic development and business while at the same time trying to keep the character of Littleton the same. I know we're all aware that there's tension there, and so that was a topic of discussion at the Littleton Listens event, and there was some chatter about that at the Hoodlum meeting.
So it was discussed. So just to make everybody kind of aware, yeah, what's going on. Yeah. Thank you for attending, and it's been nice for us to be part of the community, the business community, and attend those events. One thing that is going to be taking staff's time, it's mentioned, is combining the design guidelines and the historic preservation guidelines. Dennis or Jocelyn, can you speak to that in terms of how long you think it's going to take to do all that, and what kind of resources, just as an awareness thing for the board?
So City Council at their, I can't remember the exact date, but a couple of weeks ago they had a study session on priorities, and one of the priorities that came out of that is that they do want staff to work on design guidelines for the community. And so what we brought forward is that we first want to review and make some tweaks to the downtown design guidelines and the historic guidelines. So that's on the work plan to move that forward, and I do not have relative dates around that yet, but obviously that will involve both Planning Commission and HPB as well as the community, but just more to come on that once we figure what that actually looks like.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, just to be aware that those are, and I think that'll reduce a lot of confusion. I don't know if you have any update on Delizio's?
No, we are going to follow up with the code inspection on that and let them know that they have a date that they have to get that finished by. They painted the rooftop equipment, but they've never fenced it. And so the Columbine on Main is actually leaving the building in September. That's the end of their lease. So it's going to be working both with the tenant as well as the owner of the property in terms of.
Will that carry forward to the next tenant?
Yes,
so that would be a requirement. Could that be a requirement before they get a permit, or that doesn't work? Or maybe just a recommendation?
At this point, it'll be code enforcement with the property owner.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that update. The other thing I wanted to mention is, Sonia's not here. I did send an email to Gail and Margie. With the tours, they've been very involved in the tours, and so haven't had a chance to work on the landmarks. Michael is working on the title guarantee building. I don't know if he's made much progress with that. They said that the post office maintenance is scheduled for November, and they didn't have an update on the designation at all. So they've been a great partner for us with these historic tours, and what we've done is we've had a point person for each of the series of tours, and that way that person has to bring the signs and make sure that there's somebody at each place, and we work together, but that all the tours are covered, and we'll get with you on the microphone. One other thing that I did, and I've been working with staff on, is we want to have a brochure where we combine some of the landmark brochure, the advantages of joining the district, and a little bit about what historic preservation is. That's more of a longer-term project, so as an interim project for Western Welcome, we put together a one-pager, and I can just let you look at it. You can look at it. It's what is preservation, some of the advantages to the owners, advantages to the community, what is landmark designation at a very high level, what is Historic Preservation Board, what is HLI, and then resources. So anybody can follow up with staff, they can look on the website, actually put the phone number of community development. So we'll have something to give out there, and this is just, Dennis is just gonna run it off on a color printer and nothing fancy, and he's probably gonna make the pictures a little better than I did. I just did a mock-up. So anyhow, so we'll have that. I'm not sure if we meet before Western Welcome. The first person to sign up, I think, is Ted, is the 8 o'clock. We don't have, could you work with Dennis to get what the materials we need to set up? And the staff has nicely allowed us to use their Easy Up, a table, and a banner. And then we're going to get a sign with grommets Dennis is working on so that we'll be able to hang it up. And then I do have people at each time period before and after the parade, and then HLI will do it too. And we'll just go as far as into the afternoon as we can, and if we have nobody from the afternoon, we'll just have to make arrangements to make sure that all those materials are loaded up. And it may not be you, Ted. It will probably be either the last person or somebody from HLI to make sure we get the materials back to Dennis. Anything else?
I'm doing a tour with Margie and Gail Berry this Thursday for the Littleton Leadership Group. That's going to be, are you involved with that? No. So
wonderful.
If you're downtown Thursday afternoon, just kind of keep it quiet while we're giving a tour.
What time is your tour?
I've got it like at 3 o'clock. I have to kind of follow up and find that out. But yeah, so we'll be doing more tours. We're going to rehearse tomorrow night too. So.
If anybody who hasn't done a tour, hasn't done a practice tour, I don't know if Ted, or you've done half, Jolene. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Amy. Okay, what time tomorrow night, just to make it available, people could.
And it's kind of tailored, it's tweaked a little bit, but it's at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock, we're going to meet at Curtis and Main Street.
Okay, so if you wanted to do 5, that would be 5 to 6, and.
For the rehearsal, yeah.
And the rehearsal at 3 o'clock, where are you meeting?
No, the rehearsal's tomorrow, 5. The tour's like 3 o'clock Thursday, but it's going to be a bunch of people.
So that
also,
don't come to that one.
Okay.
You guys remember that we did not notice that, so it would really be limited relative to who's going to go to that, so you don't.
Okay, so we can only have one other besides Dan, right?
Correct.
Okay, is there anybody that does want to call dibs on it? Okay, you can't make it. So, okay, so I think we're fine. Anything else? If not, we'll go ahead.
Can we talk to staff again about the tax credits?
Yes,
please?
Thank you, yes. Can you explain the difficulty with the tax credits?
Oh, yeah, no difficulty, just timing issues as much as anything. So they are going out, they come in individually, and so some come, typically the turnaround's fairly fast. It's been a little slower this year just because of other projects we've been working on, but those are going out, so. And some of them have gone out already. It just depends, but there's a backlog too, so I agree. it'd be nice if we could do it all with people who've done it before. The way we have done it, and I think it's the way it's in the code actually, is that the language in the code actually says that homeowners can apply for. And so the interpretation of that has been that's an annual application. And so we send out applications each year, and they send those back in or email those back in once they've paid their property taxes. And so we wait until they've paid them. We've had some come in without having them paid, and so we have to contact them and let them know that it has to be paid. And all we ask for really is a copy of the page from the assessor's office showing that it has been paid. There's a zero balance for the year. So we don't break it up into two payments like the assessors does. We actually do it single. It's a little strange the way it's in the code too, in terms of which area you live in. If you are in the Main Street district, there's no tax return. I think the thought was that maybe there are enough other programs for the Main Street property owners. If you are an individual landmark, you get 100% of your city property taxes returned. And if you are in the Loudoun district, you get 50% of your taxes, property taxes rebated. And again, I'm not sure what the logic in that was, but they are going out. I've got quite a few sitting on my desk right now. They're ready to go. I just need to get them to Denise and get those out. So they go upstairs.
Do you batch them?
I have been batching them, yeah.
So you kind of wait for a group to come in?
I have been, just because of, because you need to do this repetition of stuff otherwise, so, yeah.
Is it possible to do them like more frequently? Not one at a time, but
it would be. I've been lax this year on getting those out. I've just been too scheduled with other things, unfortunately. So
yeah,
I can do
it. I realize limited resources, but maybe if they weren't batched so long, in other words, they're done more frequently, it might be.
Yeah, no,
I understand.
I'm ready to go.
And have you had a fair amount of submissions then? You have a lot of applicants?
It's fairly typical. It's surprising to me, I think, that there are people who do not apply, because when you get one of the commercial properties, it's a fairly significant amount of money. The residential properties are much smaller because their taxes are less. So we do have some commercial that have gone through already and they've gotten their checks. But we have some that haven't come in over the years. I've kept record each year and compare who's applying and who's not. And there's some that consistently do not apply. And I'm a little concerned about whether or not they all got it this year. So I'm going to actually resend again, so we make sure that everybody's covered, because you can see who's not applied for it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, one more. To the question that you had about, I think, more the kind of the process of resubmitting on an annual basis, is there something that we can look at with, I'm assuming it doesn't fall with this board, but city council or that type of thing, where you have a recurring applicant, they can maybe streamline some of that paperwork?
Sorry, not to answer for Dennis,
No,
but
that was
I
fine.
would say that one thing that we have on the agenda to come back to you guys when we have a little bit of time, so once your tours are mostly done, is a conversation about this particular program, because one thing that the code does require is that any property that does want to obtain that tax credit does have to make sure they're keeping the maintenance and whatnot of their building in fairly good upkeep. And so HPB does look at that from time to time of what that checklist is. And so this probably would be a good opportunity for us to bring the whole thing back for you guys to really look through that again and kind of revamp it, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
And again, it would be a code change if we do make those changes.
That's where I was kind of driving at, is what the change is. That's the code. Okay, thank you.
But we could, if we did any changes, we'd have to change the code?
Correct.
Just depends on what that change
The change
might be.
is.
How severe it is? Okay. Thank you. I'm glad we brought that up. The only thing when I met with Jocelyn is that we discussed on the work plan, everything's pretty much the same. We mentioned we're going to request more money, is that we had talked about the plaques for the properties, and because of the design guideline project, that will probably fall to sometime next year. The other thing that we mentioned was the entry signs for Arapahoe Hills, and Jocelyn suggested that we get some more input more current input for the current, from the current neighbors to see what they think about that sign. And I don't know, is that more of a staff project? Paul's not here tonight. Were you going to reach out to Paul? Do you need help from us?
We can reach out to Paul.
Okay, so, yeah, so Paul being a point person may be able to help with that.
And he's
so.
not here. So
And
we
he's
can't
not
just-
here. I think everything else is either in process on the work plan. I think we're moving along with everything, some in a more formal, some in a more informal way. If that's it, we can go ahead and adjourn. Okay, let's go ahead and adjourn. Thank you.